Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So we are looking at our next component in our pipeline, which is data validation. So data is the basis for every machine learning model, and we've all heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. Means your model won't perform well if your data um, isn't curated or isn't validated. So this is the main um, reason why we want to do data validation. And you want to do data validation to make sure that the data that you have is what you your feature engineering step expects. So, for example, in your feature, so let's look at our problem. We want to predict whether a movie review is positive or not. So in the feature engineering step, probably you might change your labels, your movie predictions into a 0 or a 1. If you have null values, I mean, you can't really change null values into say 0 or 1 because your reviews are integers. So in that case, your feature engineering step might fail. So it's good to validate your data to see if to make sure that it conforms to what you want to do in your feature engineering. So there are three main things you want to do. We do in data validation. We check for anomalies. We check that the data schema hasn't changed. We will talk about that. And then we want to check that the statistics of our new data sets also align with the statistics of our previous data sets, because this is a pipeline that you might deploy, and you don't run pipelines just once, you run them more than one. And if you also, so you always want to check if your incoming, the statistics of your new incoming data is different from the previous data. So there's a lot that goes into data validation. Because there's a lot going to data validation, there are three components that we normally use in TFX for data validation. So we have StatisticsGen, SchemaGen, and then example validator. And then we also have a standalone library, which is the TFDV. Now all these TFX components use TFDV under the hood. Um, you use TFDV if you want fine-grained control over your statistics or your schema. And I would have a playlist solely on TFDV sometime in the future. So, without wasting much time, let's go on with our first TFX component in data validation, which is StatisticsGen. So the StatisticsGen component is very easy to use. So if you go to the documentation, um, it says it generates feature statistics over both training and serving data, which can be used by other components. And under the hood, all the TFX components use Apache Beam for processing and so that they can scale to large data sets. If you want to know more about Apache Beam, you can search online. And um, so the input to the StatisticsGen TFX component is the output of example gen, and then it would also produce its own output. So let's see how to use this. So we say from tfx.component import statistics gen. Then we say statistics gen equals to statistics gen, and then we say example gen dot output examples, and then after that we'll use the context um, manager to run this. So we say context dot run StatisticsGen. So this will take some time to run, and I will come back to this video when um, the run is complete. So it has finished running, and then we can see some output. So we have our component inputs and outputs, and the artifacts that are generated, and yeah, we can go back to our pipeline, and then we can see that a new folder has been generated for StatisticsGen, and there are some files in there for the splitting. So the feature statistics have been put in those files. So this is not really attractive, or it's not really nice to um, just have some files being generated. Let's go ahead and then actually visualize our statistics. So we'll say context.show statisticsgen dot, so the output of your statistics. So statistics, yeah, and then we can run this. And when we run this, we have some nice looking graphs. So we have our train split, and then we have evaluation split. So the graphs for the train and evaluation. So let's look at our numeric features. We have helpful and total, and then categorical features, 5 of them: date, rating, review, title, username. If you look at the statistics of the helpful column for the train, so 34.2% of them are zeros, and 15.2% of the total are zeros, and it's the similar statistics for the evaluation too, which means that the data splitting was quite good. And there is a bit of a problem. If you, so let's go back here to the train, and let's click this button here, which is expand, right? And then let's go to our rating, right? Let's show data instead of um, that chart. So you can see here all the ratings, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we have null. So some of the users did not give any rating. So as I said, our work is to determine whether a rating is positive or not, and we cannot do that if a user does not give a rating. So what we have to do is we have to remove this null rating from our data set. So machine learning is not a top, just a straight top to down approach. You sometimes do some data validation, you realize that there's something wrong with your data, you have to go back to your first step of cleaning the data. So we will perform a little bit of data cleaning we move on before we move on to our next component, and we will do that in the next module.